Avengers, Infinity War, and Global Government. This talk will focus on the Avengers Infinity War movie and its main villain Thanos, also called the Mad Titan, on his brutal quest to acquire the 6 Infinity Stones, which will allow him to depopulate half of all life in the universe, an act that he feels is justified to bring balance to the universe due to limited resources and too many mouths to feed. And I will show the parallel of some in our world who are on their quest to achieve a one-world global government, justified in their belief that only global governance can save mankind from the threat of extinction. Global government. There are many different names for global government. The term New World Order is often associated with the idea of a dark, tyrannical world government. But in modern times, it was made famous by former President George H.W. Bush in a speech on September the 11th, 1990, to a joint session of Congress, in which he spoke about the new cooperation between the two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, along with the international community acting as one, with authority through the United Nations resolution. They would later go on to expel Saddam Hussein's Iraqi forces from Kuwait, signifying that the nations of the world can come together under a United Nations framework for global governance. Other names, ideas, and conspiracy theories about global government that are widely known are the shadow government, the Cabal, the Rothschilds, the Bilderberg Group, the 13 families, the Illuminati, and many more. These relate to an idea that global government will be an evil to mankind that will bring a mass depopulation to reduce the number of people deemed unworthy to live, and bring about a brutal, centralized one-world state to control all aspects of human life, with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness removed from the world, replaced with a Hunger Games-style society worldwide. And now to the term one world government, which to some seems to be a logical political evolution to bring all the nations of the world under a one world supreme government, like a worldwide version of the United States of America. Just as the 50 states are one nation with one national flag and open borders between the 50 states, to signify that we are one people with one president to lead the 50 United States. The 6 Infinity Stones in Avengers Infinity War are each said to control an essential aspect of existence, and they are the Reality Stone, the Mind Stone, the Power Stone, the Soul Stone, the Time Stone, and the Space Stone. The parallel of these 6 stones relate to aspects of our world, and 6 main crises that will move mankind through fear and terror to a one-world global government. The Reality Stone, symbolizing the crisis of global war and the effects warfare has played in the development of mankind up to this point in history, with many of the advances in science, medicine, and technology coming from mankind's long history of warfare. In the 20th century, in the aftermath of World War I, 42 countries joined together in the first worldwide intergovernmental organization to maintain peace. They called it the League of Nations. It would fail to prevent World War II, and mankind would develop the deadliest weapons of war that humanity has ever seen. Weapons capable of destroying every human on Earth. But also, in the aftermath of World War II, the nations of the world would come together again to form this time what is called the United Nations. meant to become the framework for global governance, to maintain peace among nations, and to hopefully steer mankind away from global thermonuclear war. The reality is that war is one of the greatest threats to mankind's continued existence on this earth. The Mind Stone, symbolizing the crisis of global terrorism. The attacks of September the 11th, 2001, represented a shift in focus away from the threat of nuclear war between the great powers to a shadowy terrorist threat that could be anyone, anywhere, at any time, and would begin a program of mass surveillance of the whole world. The fear and terror from this event and the anthrax attacks that followed would put the minds of Americans in the grip of fear so strong that they would allow torture, warrantless wiretaps, and the rise of the police state to further erode our rights and liberties away. And America was not alone. All around the world, nations were all of a sudden being overwhelmed by terror threats, which spread like a pathogen of fear on the whole world. It would also lead to greater cooperation between militaries, security and intelligence agencies worldwide to counter the growing threat of terrorism. But the 9/11 attacks would awaken in many people's minds that global terrorism threat was being used as a pretext to usher in a new mentality of fear and submission. The Power Stone, symbolizing global financial crisis. There can be little doubt that money is the power in this world. So a crisis in the global financial sector would trigger fear and panic on a level that could shake even the wealthy and well-off around the world. And just 7 years after the attacks of September the 11th, in September 2008, the U.S. stock market would begin a devastating crash that would begin the Great Recession and send a financial earthquake around the world. This crisis would lead to global economic cooperation to bring the world's financial system back from the brink of disaster and to begin planning a new global economic order. The Soul Stone, symbolizing the crisis of a global pandemic. The fear of sickness and disease is so personal to us as humans because it touches our very bodies and soul, and it can break our spirit to watch loved ones suffer and die from disease. From the moment we enter this world, our body's immune systems are constantly fighting off viruses, bacteria, and other pathogens. For thousands and thousands of years, this has been the case. And so this brings us up to this point in human history. In the grip of a global pandemic, with the level of fear caused by this virus paralyzing the whole world, as if we have no immune system at all, and with questions about where this disease came from and what this disease really is. But we are seeing clear evidence of a global censorship on free thought and free expression to even ask questions about this virus. Again, we see the nations coming together to attempt to defeat this virus threat. They react to the stimuli of fear and threat that is guiding mankind to a one-world global government. The Time Stone, symbolizing the global climate crisis. The climate on this planet is timeless. It has always been and will always be a challenge to humans living on this earth. With sea levels rising and falling, hurricanes, tornadoes, droughts, melting ice caps, raging wildfires, devastating blizzards, floods, rising temperatures, and falling temperatures. One difference in the modern global climate crisis of our time is that unlike the other thousands and thousands of years of human history, is the fact that we have a global television and media system that can beam images of climate disasters from around the world into our homes and into our hands non-stop, all day, all night, creating a perception of fear that the changing climate is coming to kill you and your family. Just like the terrorist threat, just like the virus threat, and just like the communist threat. We see the media hyping images of climate disaster more and more, louder and louder. We see the nations of the world coming together to attempt to stop climate change from ending the world as we know it. But know this, it will be fear that will bring mankind into a one-world government. The Space Stone, symbolizing the crisis of a global threat from space. The final crisis that will forge a one-world global government among all the nations of the world seems to be best described by former President Ronald Reagan in a speech to the United Nations in which he stated, and I quote, "Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world." End quote. An alien invasion threat from space, or the perception of an alien threat from space, could be the final crisis to bring all the nations of the world to a level of fear necessary to truly accept our common bonds as humans and forge a one-world global government, to fight back against an alien threat from space that could end every human life on this earth. But perhaps it could be an asteroid or comet or some other threat from space. According to some conspiracy theories, the Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI, also known as the Star Wars program, set up by President Reagan, was twofold: to counter the threat from the Soviet Union and to begin to prepare for some alien threat in the future. In December 2019, the United States, under President Donald Trump, established the fifth branch of the U.S. military and the world's first independent military space force. The threat from the Soviet Union is no more. But does the alien threat remain? And what role would the Space Force play in a future global government? To the surprise of many, myself included, at the end of the Infinity War, Thanos did acquire the 6 Infinity Stones, defeating the Avengers who tried to stop him, and snapping away half of all life in the universe. Does his victory in this movie foreshadow those in our world seeking to use these 6 main crises to bring in a one-world global government when all of these crises are complete? The fear and terror from these 6 main crises are moving mankind to a one-world government, with all national sovereignty surrendered to global governance, with all militaries unified to counter the threat from beyond this world, with a one-world currency to integrate all global economies, and possibly the rise of a one-world global leader who will truly have authority over all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues. Thank you.